This case made headlines due to the extensive public appeals and searches for a young 19-year-old girl named Tio and became one of Singapore's most high-profile missing persons cases. The disappearance of Tio was a mystery that tortured her family and puzzled Singapore for more than a decade. This is the story of Tio Ling. The story was in 2007. Felicia Tio was born on the 23rd of February 1988 in Singapore. Felicia was the eldest of two children. She had a younger brother who during this story was aged 18. She lived with her mother, her father and her younger brother. Felicia Tio Ling preferred the name Tio, so for the rest of this story we'll call her Tio. She was a student at Monks Hill Secondary School before she then went on to enroll at LaSalle to study a diploma course in the arts program. Tio had a real passion for art. Her work was a reflection of her personality, and at the time of this terrible story, Tio was now in her final year as a fine arts student at LaSalle College of Arts. She still lived at home with her mother, her father and her younger brother, and the family were all very close. She was a young, independent woman who had a lot of friends and a good social life. She was known to be sociable, confident, and great with her friends, but she would constantly be on her phone sending messages, and as a teen, she never went anywhere without her phone. She was often seen on her phone posting messages or posting to her socials. She was 19 years of age at the time of this story. Tio wanted to earn some extra money to be able to have a social life, so she was also working part-time as a bar attender at a bar in Clark Quay. At the time, she was a responsible worker who helped other staff and was able to do her job and close up at the end of the night. Now, one of her friends was Ragil. She'd met him at LaSalle. He later introduced her to his friend Ahmed. The three would often hang out together as a group at the boys' flat that they shared. Tio would often visit them at their flat for music, drinks and chats. But Tio had many groups of friends, girls and boys, some from work, some from college, and others from her previous life when she was at high school. Tio's favourite hangouts included a Marine Parade, which consisted of a community club, the Marine Parade Public Library. It also had a theatre and a glass-walled gymnasium, a basketball court, and the rooftop air-conditioned sports hall, as well as a shopping mall. And Clark Quay, where she worked, it was also famous for its stunning waterside restaurants and exciting collection of bars and clubs. All of these great fun places required money, which was why Tio needed to work. But wherever she was going, Tio would always update her family and friends on her whereabouts and plans by calling or texting her parents and friends. Additionally, Tio had plans for an internship at a leading advertising firm, which she was quite excited about. And she'd also bought tickets for a concert in August that year, a concert that one of her friend groups were all going to, so she was excited about. On the 29th of June 2007, Tio left her home in Brass Bash. She went for a party at LaSalle with her friends, and this was the last time her parents ever saw Tio again. Tio had told her parents that she was going to a party, and the following day she would be attending one of her friends' weddings. Tio had left that evening with a cream bag containing $30 worth of cash, an Apple laptop and a digital camera. However, the next day on the 30th of June, Tio did not show up at the friend's wedding. No one could understand where she was. This was a good friend of Tio's. It was her big day. Tio would never have missed it. Even if she'd have been sick, she'd have dragged her ass there. And as her friends at the wedding and her parents tried as they might to get in touch, Tio could not be contacted. So 3 days later, on the 3rd of July, Tio's mother went to the police station and reported her daughter missing. And as police began investigating, they did initially classify Tio's case as a missing persons case, even though family knew that that was not the case and she would never just disappear. They looked into the CCTV around the places that Tio was supposed to have visited that night, and police investigators revealed that on the 30th of June 2007, Tio had walked up to the 10th floor flat of the two male schoolmates at the Marine Terrace apartments, Ahmad and Ragil. They were roommates up there. The two friends told police that Tio had come to their shared flat that night and stayed to around 2 a.m. on the morning of the 30th of June. They told how they had all chatted, played music and drank, but she had left on her own around 2 a.m. and they claimed that that was the last time they'd seen Tio. It was determined that Tio went missing on that day, so had something happened to her on her way home? But the police did not find any incriminating facts linking the two men to her disappearance. But then CCTV footage showed Tio entering the lift with the two men, but there was no footage of Tio leaving the flat, and she was believed to have used the stairs. So surely she must have either evaded the cameras or was still in the building. A police gazette was issued to locate her. A property gazette was also issued for properties believed to be belonging to Tio that was in her possession when she was reported missing. Tio was carrying a cream-coloured bag which contained her Apple laptop and digital camera. This was reported. The police also appealed to the public to contact the police should anyone know where Tio's whereabouts were or if they found any of her belongings. Tio's friends and family also conducted their searches. And since the disappearance, 100 friends and relatives searched at Tio's favourite hangouts, including the Marine Parade and Clark Quay, and all of them disagreed with public speculations that Tio might have run away. But Tio was a good girl, she was responsible, she was respectful, and at the time of her disappearance she was happy. She was not showing any signs of depression or any thoughts. And everyone knew that it was not like Tio to have not posted on her socials or messaged anyone. Plus she'd only got $30 on her at the time. It would have not kept her going for long. Furthermore, she would usually update her family and friends on her whereabouts and plans. And additionally, Tio had plans for this internship. And she was going to go to this concert in August. Tio's mother, who speculated that her daughter may have been abducted and taken to Malaysia. A blog was created by one of Tio's friends dedicated to their search efforts, and Tio's family went to the phone company that Tio used to obtain Tio's past text messages and phone records. Now this showed the last communication Tio had using her phone was a text message sent at 2:37 a.m. on the 30th of June, the day she disappeared, but it was received by a male friend whose identity was never known. And while search efforts did not produce any helpful information to trace Tio's whereabouts, her mother still hoped that her daughter was still alive, that she was living in another country. She was married, she had kids. Throughout the following years, police regularly interviewed Tio's case. Among all the unsolved missing cases, to check for new leads, and during regular reviews of the case, the police conducted interviews with Tio's family and other witnesses, where they checked on Tio's activities and her possible movements, including her bank accounts, her emails, her social media accounts and travel records. But no new leads were revealed, and this regular review went on for 13 years before the CID, the Criminal Investigations Department, took over the case. So in July 2020, 13 years after Tio had disappeared, the CID were involved, and they discovered new leads after tracing the belongings of which were in her possession the day she disappeared. And as police interviewed and re-interviewed the last two people known to have seen Tio, they decided to search their properties. One of the items found in the possession of Ahmad. He was a Mali Singaporean who was one of the two friends she had visited the night she disappeared. The case was reclassified as murder, and on the 15th of December 2020, the police arrested the then 35-year-old Ahmed. He was charged with murder 2 days later, and it was alleged that between 1:39 a.m. and 7:20 a.m. on the 30th of June, Ahmed and his Indonesian friend Ragil had killed Tio inside their flat and disposed of her body by unknown means. Ragil was at the time 32 years of age. He was assumed to be outside of Singapore and was listed as a fugitive on the wanted list. The police began to search for Tio's remains, and one of the suspects, Ragil, was the first one of the two to meet Tio that night. He was an Indonesian who came to Singapore to study. He had met Tio at LaSalle and had become friends. He'd later introduced her to his friend Ahmed, who also goes by the alias Daniel Emrico on social media accounts. He studied a diploma in communications and design advertising at LaSalle, where they met. He also worked as a creative manager at a gaming firm in Razor. Ragil had graduated from LaSalle in 2011 with an honours degree in video art, and he'd studied at the college between 2006 and 2011. He also worked many filmmaking jobs based in Jakarta and Indonesia, and was last known to be employed as a director's assistant at the time of Ahmed's capture. Upon the news of Ahmed's arrest, Tio's family declined to speak to the media, citing the need for privacy. This was a shock to them. They had tried to imagine Tio having a life somewhere, anywhere, as long as she was okay. So the thought of her being murdered was not only a shock, but it broke all of them. The family had continued to live at their home in Brias Bash to also allow Tio to be able to come home and find them. But some of Tio's neighbours were shocked to receive news of Tio's alleged murder, and on receiving this news, several of Tio's friends shared memories of her and spoke their hopes that she might have been alive. Tio's disappearance turned murder again brought media attention to this very high-profile case in Singapore. Decades later, upon Ahmed's arrest, he was remanded in police custody for investigations, and he appeared in court via video link and was reportedly emotionless as the charge sheet was read out to him, where he was scheduled to return to court on the 24th of December. If found guilty of murder under the laws of Singapore, he would face the death penalty, which in Singapore is hanging at dawn. Ahmed was ordered to undergo a 3-week psychiatric assessment while in remand, and on the 28th of January 2021, Ahmed's final psychiatric report was completed and would be used as evidence to assess his mental state at the time of the offence. On the 24th of May 2022, it was reported that Ahmed's remand order was extended and still in effect while police continued to search for Ragil, the other man that was apparently with them at the time she disappeared, but he had remained at large outside of Singapore. Ahmed would make his next court appearance in July 2022. He was granted a discharge, not amounting to an acquittal for Tio's alleged murder, but it can be revived if a prosecution finds additional evidence against him. His lawyers tried to convince the district court judge to grant Ahmed a full acquittal, as giving Ahmed a discharge without acquitting him would potentially lead to him being psychologically haunted by the prospect of the murder charge hanging over his head for infinity. His lawyers also emphasised the sufferings of Ahmed's wife, who had had to leave their flat due to harassment by members of the public, and his family members endured during the connection to Ahmed and the public's condemnation of his actions. Although the district judge did not accept the prosecution's proposal due to it being the wrong time to do so, he added that there may be a review in the future as to the extent of Ahmed's responsibility in the case, so it was not right at that time to fully acquit him. Despite his discharge, Ahmed still faced a charge of disposal of Tio's corpse, as well as 5 other charges of misappropriating some of Tio's possessions, giving false information to police, and withholding crucial information of Tio's case, and as well as falsifying phone calls or text messages to mislead people into thinking Tio was still alive. After he expressed his intention to plead guilty to the lower charges, and by then the prosecution, consisting of deputy public prosecutors and attorney generals, had persuaded the same 6 charges in relation to the murder charge on Ragil's charge sheet, and the Singapore police force had contacted the Indonesian authorities, who had agreed to help try and find Ragil. Although the court documents did not reveal who exactly killed Tio or her cause of death, it was revealed that Ahmed and Ragil had apparently disposed of Tio's corpse. Desperate to avoid being caught for substance consumption, which would have seen them face up to 18 months in jail, the pair apparently decided to dispose of Tio's body. Hiding Tio between 2 mattresses, they apparently cleaned the flat before planting her phone at a park for police to find. They then brought tools to dispose of her body before returning home, where they put Tio in a box, sealed it with tape, and transported the box out of the flat at night, using the staircase to avoid security cameras, before taking a cab to a remote location on the outskirts of Singapore. There, the 2 men put the box into a hole that they had dug, doused it in kerosene and set it on fire, and once the flames burnt out, they covered the hole with dirt. Search efforts resulted in the discovery of a skull fragment, where Ahmed and Ragil abandoned the corpse. The skull fragment was sent by the prosecution to the United States for mitochondrial DNA testing to determine if the skull fragment did belong to Tio. And on the 6th of July 2022, Ahmed returned to court and was set to plead guilty to the charges. However, the guilty plea was adjourned and a pre-trial hearing was conducted on the 5th of August 2022. This seemed to go on forever. The prosecution lawyer also found an appeal for Ahmed's murder charge to be fully withdrawn, with a discharge amounting to acquittal. If an acquittal was granted, it would mean that Ahmed would not be charged again with the same offence. The appeal was scheduled for hearing at the High Court, but the Chief Justice was appointed to hear the appeal, and while the appeal was being processed, the full grounds of the decision by the judge was released on the 12th of August 2022. He explained that there was no basis to acquit Ahmed, as at the district court hearing stage, there was no precedent cases of murder suspects acquitted before their official trial at the High Court. Giving Ahmed an acquittal would potentially give him legal immunity against the murder charge. Ahmed returned to court to submit his guilty plea on the 14th of October 2022, and on the same day, Ahmed was sentenced to 26 months imprisonment for abandoning Tio's body, stealing her belongings, and giving false evidence to authorities. Ahmed's sentence was 1 month short of 27 months in jail term. The DNA results from the American forensic authorities revealed that the skull most likely belonged to Tio. Ahmed's 26-month sentence was backdated to the date of his arrest, and since most of his sentence was inclusive of this period of remand before his bail, Ahmed would be out of prison within a very short amount of time. Ragil was still a missing suspect. During sentencing, the district judge told of how Ahmed had callously taken advantage of Tio's death by taking her belongings and hiding the truth from friends and family, leaving them unable to find closure. The prosecution argued that Ahmed's actions were likely premeditated with a great amount of planning, and his cover-up of Tio's death caused the unnecessary channeling of resources in the 13-year-long fruitless search for 19-year-old Tio. The Chief Justice said, "As things stand, the murder charge against Ahmed cannot proceed until and unless Mr. Ragil's assistance is secured." So not only did Tio's family not know what had happened to her or where she was for 13 years as of the arrest of Ahmed, it took years through the courts to try and work out what actually happened, and eventually it was decided that without Mr. Ragil, they cannot prosecute further. The Indonesian authorities and the Singaporean authorities are still searching for Mr. Ragil. Until that time, no one has been convicted for murder, and the case continues, and the family are heartbroken.